Your job is making you unhappy and you know that it is time for a change. You are tired of doing work that is boring you, work that doesn't excite you, and you are tired of feeling unhappy, undervalued, and underpaid in your career. So you've been thinking about making a career change or a career pivot. You have scrolled job boards late at night. You have updated your resume. You have worked with a career coach. You have redone your LinkedIn. Maybe you've even applied to a handful of jobs, but for some reason you haven't actually made any real progress with your career change or your career pivot. You are still stuck in that same unfulfilling job that is draining you, and you can't for the life of you figure out why you are having such a hard time making this career pivot. Well, if that's you, keep watching this video, because in this video, I'm going to break down the 3 reasons that most career pivot attempts fail. This is based on years of working with hundreds of clients. And for each reason, I'm going to share how to avoid that failure so that you can actually successfully pivot into a more fulfilling job that you genuinely enjoy and get paid well. If you are new here, hi and welcome. If you're a regular viewer, welcome back. I'm Dr. Tega. I'm a career coach who helps professional women leave draining, soul-sucking jobs that they don't like and land higher paying, more fulfilling careers that they enjoy. And I do this by helping them clarify their next career move and job search without burning out. Let's get into today's video. So a lot of times, by the time women come to work with me as their career coach to help them figure out what job is right for them and job search to land that job without burning out, they have already tried many things to change their career situations. Like, I will hear things like, I've been unhappy for 15 years. I've worked with a resume writer. I've applied to multiple jobs. I've gotten my LinkedIn redone. I have read a book. I have taken online career tests, but none of their attempts to make a career pivot has actually worked for them. And after talking to literally hundreds of clients at this point in my career, I have noticed 3 fundamental failures that often cause attempts to make a career pivot to fall apart before you even get started. So let's get into those 3 failures, what they look like, and how you can avoid each one of them so you can successfully make a career pivot. The first reason that most career pivots fail is a failure to clarify first. What usually happens is that you're miserable in your current job, right? So you start scrolling job boards. You are looking for something, anything that seems better than what you're doing now. So you see a job that sounds interesting, you apply. Then you see another job that sounds interesting, so you apply to that one too. You are legit just throwing applications at the wall, hoping that something sticks. But the problem with that is you never stopped to figure out what you actually want in your career. You don't know what your non-negotiable values are. You haven't taken time to figure out what kind of work genuinely energizes you versus drains you, and you haven't identified the skills you actually enjoy using. So what happens? Usually one of 3 things. 1, you don't get any interviews because your applications are all over the place and you have no clear narrative to make a pivot. 2, you do get a job, but 6 months later, you're miserable again because it wasn't aligned with who you are in this season of your life. And 3, you stay stuck because you can't decide what to apply for, so you just end up applying to nothing. So why does this cause your pivot attempt to fail? Well, without clarity, you're essentially just like taking a shot in the dark. You might get lucky and land in a decent job, but more likely you will end up in another job you don't like and have to pivot yet again. How do you avoid this failure? Well, you have to do the clarity work first. Before you open a single job board, look at a job description, update your resume, you need to get clear on your non-negotiable values, your zone of genius interest, and the skills you actually enjoy using in your career, not just what you're good at. This is actually the C in my CLAIR framework for making a career pivot. Clarify who you are. If you haven't watched my video where I actually break down the CLAIR pivot framework and the 5 steps for a successful pivot yet, you should definitely watch that video after you watch this one. I'm going to link it somewhere here for you, because in that video, I walk you through step by step how to do this clarity work. But the bottom line is this: if you skip clarity, your pivot will fail. Point blank, period. The second reason most career pivots fail is a failure to evaluate your pivot tolerance. First, what exactly is pivot tolerance? Pivot tolerance is your capacity to handle change and stress when it comes to your finances, your time, your emotions, and skill building while making a career pivot. So what does failure to evaluate your pivot tolerance look like? Well, you get excited about a new career path. Maybe you decide that you want to become a therapist or a customer service rep or a UX designer or a data analyst. So you start researching the job and then you realize, oh, hold on, I need to go back to school for this. Or I need to get a certification, or I need to take a pay cut to start at a entry level. And then reality hits. You recognize that you have bills to pay. You have a family to take care of. You don't have 2 years to go back to school full time. You can't afford to take a $20,000 pay cut. But instead of adjusting your pivot to match what is realistic for your season of life, you either try to force it anyway and end up burnt out, or you give up entirely because you think pivoting isn't possible for me. So why does this cause your pivot attempt to fail? Well, not every pivot is wise for your particular season of life. And when you pick a pivot that requires more time, money, or flexibility than you actually have right now, you can't sustain that pivot. You end up quitting halfway through and going back to your old career, except now you feel even more discouraged because your attempt to leave didn't work. So how do you avoid this failure? You need to honestly evaluate, what am I willing to invest? What is realistic for me right now? Ask yourself, am I willing to go back to school? For how long? Am I willing to get a certification? How much will it cost? Can I afford to take a temporary pay cut? Do I have 6 to 12 months to job search, or do I need something faster? And then, and this is key, pick a pivot that matches your tolerance level. If you can't go back to school right now, look for pivot options that don't require a degree. If you can't afford to take a pay cut, focus on lateral moves or upward moves. If you need to move quickly, like you don't have time, consider a pivot where you are changing either just your industry or company and not your role, or more than one of those three things, role, industry, or company at once, because that makes it harder. This is actually also the E in my clear pivot framework. Evaluate your pivot tolerance. Not every pivot is realistic for everyone at every season of life, but there is a strategic pivot that works for you to find fulfillment right now. So the bottom line is this: if you pick an unrealistic pivot for your life, it will fail. Match your pivot to your current reality. Now, before I share the third failure, if you are finding this video helpful so far, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below so that way you never miss future videos from me and YouTube shares this video with more people. And keep watching, because if you actually want a resource that will give you step-by-step guidance to avoid these failures and successfully pivot into a more fulfilling career, I created the Peaceful Pivot Guide that walks you through my entire clear pivot framework with worksheets, AI prompts, and action steps. I will share more about that at the end of this video, or you can just click the link in the description below if you want to learn more about it now. Okay, let's talk about failure number 3. The third reason that most career pivots fail is a failure to build resilience. Resilience is your ability to adapt to stress. And no matter what anyone tells you, making a career pivot is stressful, which, side note, is why you should always get help and not try to DIY it yourself. But back to what I was saying. You will experience stress while pivoting. That is normal. And not all stress is bad anyway. But if you don't build an ability to flow through that stress, your pivot attempt will fail. And what does this failure look like? It's when you've done the clarity work. You know what you want. You have picked a realistic pivot. So you start the process, right? You start applying to jobs, and then crickets. No responses, or you get a few interviews, but no offers. By week 3, you're frustrated. By week 6, you're discouraged. By week 10, you're telling yourself, this isn't working. Maybe I should just give up. So you stop applying. You stop trying to make a pivot. You go back to that old job that you don't like, and you tell yourself, a career pivot just isn't for me. So why does this cause your pivot attempt to fail? Career pivots take time. The average job search normally is 3 to 6 months. And when you are making a pivot, especially an industry pivot, it can take even longer because you are building relationships in a new space. You are learning new language and positioning yourself in a new way. But most people expect results in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, without getting the help or resources that can shorten the pivot timeline. And when they don't see immediate progress with their pivot attempts, they just give up before the process has had time to work. So how do you avoid this failure? You need to build resilience before you start the pivot process. That means expect it to take 3 to 6 months. Know that rejection is a part of the process. It doesn't mean that you're not qualified. Build a support system, whether that is a coach that you can work with, a community you can be in, or an accountability partner. Lean on your faith. Trust that God is redirecting you, not punishing you, and that the right job will come. And I'll be honest with you, when I actually made my own pivot from healthcare data entry to counseling, I applied to over 50 jobs after grad school. 50! And I heard back from, till today, one of those jobs. Just one. And that is the one job that hired me and kicked off 12 years of career fulfillment. Now, my next pivot from counselor to professor, because I had the skills and the experience, I had worked as a career counselor for a while by then, and a mentor that I worked in while I was pivoting, that pivot only took 2 months, minus the time getting my PhD. This is the R in my CLAIR framework. Resilience. Resilience through the pivot process. Your pivot will take time, but it also will be worth it. So the bottom line is, if you give up too soon, your pivot will fail. So just stay in the game and stay resilient. Now, there's a chance that you might be listening to me and you're thinking, this sounds like a lot of work. Do I really need to do all of this? Can't I just apply to jobs and see what happens? And honestly, yes, you can do that. But that is exactly why most pivot attempts fail. The women who successfully pivot, like the ones who land higher paying, fulfilling jobs in a new industry, are the ones who do the foundational work. They actually get clarity, they pick realistic pivots, and they build resilience. The women who don't do this work, they either stay stuck for years and years and years in a job that they don't like, or they end up in another job they don't like 6 months later. So yes, you need to do this work. But now here's the good news. You don't have to figure it out alone. And that is why I created the Peaceful Pivot Guide as a resource and a tool to help you successfully pivot without burning out. So recap, the 3 reasons that most career pivots fail is a failure to clarify first, so skipping the clarity work and jumping straight into job searching. Failure to evaluate your pivot tolerance, so picking an unrealistic pivot for your season of life. And failure to build resilience, giving up too soon when the process takes longer than expected. If you find a way to avoid these 3 failures, your pivot has a much higher chance of being successful. And if you want step-by-step guidance to walk you through exactly how to clarify, evaluate, and build resilience, this is why I created the Peaceful Pivot Guide. It walks you through my entire 5-step CLAIR pivot framework with worksheets, reflection questions, AI prompts, and action steps to help you make a successful pivot into a job that you genuinely enjoy. You can grab your copy and learn more at pivotwithpeace.com. You can also click that link in the description below. And then I want to hear from you. Which of these 3 failures do you think you are most at risk of making? Skipping clarity, picking an unrealistic pivot, or giving up too soon? Drop it in the comments below and let's chat. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. That way you don't miss future videos from me that will continue to help you in your career. Now, once you hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons below, watch this. Don't click away because on the screen right here next to me, another video is popping up. Go ahead and click that video. Watch that video. I have a feeling you haven't watched that video yet. Click it so that I can continue to support you in your career.